June 28th, 1998 is when I started at TPC.
Yeah. Cut that part out.
We'll be talking over each other.
We do anyway, so.
I got excused from the trial. That's good.
Do we really want to talk about this? All right, important stuff to know about wire and cable. Let's roll.
Yeah.
To me, the keys are the construction of the cable and the material selection. For example, our Trexonics products like C-Flex, we don't have to put a fluoropolymer insulation on that, but for flexing applications, it's probably the best choice or one of the best choices to get the performance, and that's kind of what we're all about, is performance. So it's more expensive, no doubt about it, but performance-wise, it's top notch. So, you know, we make discussions like that. Lay lengths, which a lot of people don't understand. I didn't when I started here. So last year I finally figured it out. But, you know, proper lay lengths mean a lot as far as performance, depending if it's torsional, depending if it's more like a cat track, so things of that nature. Stranding, obviously the finer strand, you get a more flexible product. So there's a lot to that, but to me it's selection of materials and construction. You know, something, you know, we've talked about in front of our reps a lot of times is there's a lot of CPE compounds out there, there's a lot of PVCs out there, there's a lot of everything. But PVC is a good example. There are so many different compounds of PVC. We could choose a less expensive one and sell our cable cheaper, but it's probably not going to perform how we want it to. So we choose something that's maybe a little bit more expensive and gives us better performance. Same thing with the rubbers. There's, you know, you say, I have a CPE compounded jacket. Well, that gives you the basics, but it doesn't tell you the performance. You know, you can have a relatively poor performing CPE or a strong performing CPE.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think one of the other things we've been fortunate to do is, you know, we've aligned ourselves with some really good suppliers that had strong engineering, and they were also open to new ideas. You know, I remember sitting in meetings where, hey, have you guys looked at these new materials, or have you looked at this? Or, you know, Tim is always bringing up, you know, there's a new material out by Lubrizol. You know, have you guys looked at this or experimented with this? So, you know, we've grown with our suppliers, we've challenged our suppliers, and in most cases they've responded to those challenges and been able to support us as we've continued to grow, and new compounds have come out.
I would say we've educated our suppliers.
Oh.
I remember sitting in meetings where you're telling suppliers about new materials. They're
All the time, and they don't know anything about them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you gave away our secrets, basically. Thanks.
Well, but you know, they could choose to ignore it, or they could choose to embrace it. And I think in more cases than not, they embraced it, and you know, we've both sort of grown together in a lot of those areas. So,
but even to add on to the supplier part, though, that is important. We kind of take it for granted, but the wrong supplier can put you in a bad position.
Right. Yes.
And we've been really fortunate there.
Yeah, you want suppliers to be as innovative as we try to be.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's important.
And to listen to us also. Yeah. I mean, you know, like, you know, this, here's what we're looking for. You're not there yet. Can you get there? And
right.
They usually will try.
They usually step up.
Yeah.
And it's more than just the materials as well. I mean, we talk about designs. I could sit down and talk to them about the best way that I think we should approach a design. You know, and one of the things that drives our company is high performance. We've talked about that for years and years. And I'm always looking at, when I see high performance, I'm talking about things that, a cable that you can build that can virtually live in any kind of condition. So the worst conditions are these dynamic applications where cables are moving everywhere. So you want to get the stresses correct inside the cables so that you don't have one particular member that's being overstressed that makes it fail. You want it all to live a long life. So that helps make that happen. So we sit down and talk to the suppliers about, hey, how do I position things? Where do I put them? What materials do I use? When Dave was talking about our Trexonics products where we use fluoropolymers, one of the key things about fluoropolymers, they have a very high coefficient of friction. So having that, the word that I use is lubricity. It allows the cable to move. It gives it some wiggle room, so to speak. So that's what happens. That's part of that nature of how do we choose the right materials put the cable design together correctly to make it last longer for our customers.